Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. There is a place just behind your eyes where silence hums like a memory. It doesn't shout, it doesn't even speak, it simply lingers, like fog at the edge of morning, or the soft hush that falls before snow touches earth. In that silence there is a colour, not one you can name, not red or blue or green, but something your skin might recognise, something your bones might recall even if your voice does not. Imagine a world with no light, not blackness, that's too loud, but a world where light has never existed at all. In such a place, sound would not be a visitor. It would be the only map, the only way to know what is near and what is far. You wouldn't see the rustle of leaves, you'd feel the air change as it passed. You wouldn't see a friend's face, you'd know them by the shape of their footsteps, the warmth in their voice. Sound would become vision, vibration would become light. This is not fiction, this is echolocation. Some animals, like bats and whales, have always lived in the dark, but they see just fine. They use sound the way we use light. They send it out, a chirp, a click, a pulse, and wait. When it returns, it tells them a story. The shape of a tree, the distance of a cave wall, the movement of prey, the world drawn in echo. And the brain, like an artist, colours it in. Now drift closer. Humans, too, can feel sound. Not with our eyes, perhaps, but with the skin on our arms, the drum inside our ears, and the quiet pathways of our nervous system. In total silence, the brain grows more sensitive. It listens harder. It begins to see with sound. A blind person snapping their fingers in a hallway can tell when they are near a wall, not by looking, by listening. Their brain paints a picture using invisible waves, like a whisper against the dark. Even in the womb, long before we speak, we hear the thump of a heartbeat, the rhythm of a mother's breath. And though it is dim, those sounds shape us. They comfort us. They tell us the world is near. Perhaps that's why silence can sometimes feel so oud. It reminds us of what we've lost, or of something waiting to return. Scientists have studied what silence does to the mind. In one experiment, a room was built so quiet you could hear your own blood flowing. People said the silence had weight, that it pressed on them like stone. Some could only stay for minutes. Others said they saw colours, but there were no lights, only the brain reaching out trying to draw something in the dark. Sound, when missing, leaves a space, and that space fills with imagination. Let's drift deeper. Sound is vibration, a ripple in the air, and when there's no sound, those ripples rest, but they never vanish. Even in total stillness, your body makes a song. Tiny bones in your ears, called ossicles, sit like a delicate bridge. They move when waves touch them and send signals to your brain. But when there is nothing, and no voice, no hum, no bird outside the window, those bones sit quietly waiting. And yet the brain does not wait. It begins to invent. In deep silence, some people hear faint melodies that do not exist. A phantom violin, a long-forgotten tune. This is not madness. It's the mind remembering how to listen, filling in the blank spaces with fragments of what once was, or what could be. Sound, after all, is as much memory as it is moment. In the dark, your senses rearrange. Sight steps back. Touch grows sharper. Ears open wider. And silence, true silence, becomes its own kind of sound. Not absence, but presence. Not emptiness, but potential, like a blank canvas or a field of fresh snow, or the moment just before dawn when everything is waiting. Now imagine standing in a cave, miles beneath the earth. The air is thick, cool, still. You whisper just once, and the sound carries, bouncing back in slow, soft echoes. The cave is telling you its shape, its depth, its mood. You cannot see it, but you know it's there, because the silence was broken, and in that break you found the outline of the world. Somewhere deep in the ocean a whale sings. Its song travels for miles, unbroken. Another whale hears it and sings back. They cannot see each other, but the sound finds a way, The silence lets it in. This is how the dark becomes bright. This is how sound becomes colour, not in the eye, but in the heart, in the mind, in the memory of touch. Close your eyes, breathe in the quiet, listen not for what is there, but for what might be waiting. There is a shape in the silence, a shimmer in the stillness, and though you may never see it, your body remembers, your bones hum with it, your skin knows it. The colour of silence is not black. It is the sound of being alive, even when all else is still. Imagine sound not just as a wave, but as a thread, a gentle golden thread that weaves its way through space, touching what it passes, tying one moment to the next. In a quiet room, this thread becomes easier to see, not with eyes, but with presence. The hum of a refrigerator, the sigh of wind beneath the door. Each sound, no matter how small, stretches outward, and the brain, like a quiet loom, gathers these threads, spinning them into experience. Science tells us that sound travels as vibration, compressions and rarefactions of air, but to the body it is so much more. Sound is pressure, it is warmth, it is texture. Some people can feel a thunderclap in their chest before they hear it. Others sense a friend's footsteps in the floorboards long before the door creaks open. Sound touches us, sometimes before we even know it's there. In this way, silence doesn't mean the absence of sound, it means the quieting of noise so that gentler sounds can be heard, felt, known. In nature, silence is never truly silent. A forest in winter seems still, but listen carefully, and you'll hear the creak of tree limbs shifting under frost. A distant raven calling once, then gone. Snowflakes landing like whispers. The science of bioacoustics studies how animals use sound to survive, and it teaches us that the quietest places are often full of meaning. A deer holds still not because it hears nothing, but because it hears everything. It is listening for intention, for change, for the slight ripple in the soundscape that means something is coming. When scientists use microphones to record the Earth's quietest places, deep under Arctic ice or in the heart of a desert, they find that silence hums. The Earth itself makes a sound, not loud, not sharp, but always there, a low, patient frequency. Some call it microseismic noise, tiny tremors from ocean waves far away. Others describe it more poetically, as the breath of the planet. A song too low for us to hear, unless we stop and stretch our attention wider than we thought possible. Even in our own homes, silence is not empty. The buzz of electricity in the walls, the heartbeat in your chest, the small ticking of time as it moves through your fingers. The mind begins to notice these things, in quiet. And in noticing, it wakes up, not frantically and gently, curiously, begins to ask, what is this I'm feeling? Where does it come from? What does it mean to listen without looking? Inside the brain, something remarkable happens when you enter silence. Neural activity doesn't slow down. It becomes more coordinated, like a river smoothing its flow. One study found that silence, even for just a few minutes, increases the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the place where memories live. Silence, then, may not be a void. It may be a garden, a place where thoughts bloom softly, without noise to crowd them. Musicians understand this. They say that the rests between notes are just as important as the notes themselves. Without silence, music would be chaos, a flood with no shape. But with silence, a song breathes. It waits. It allows emotion to stretch. In this way, the absence of sound becomes part of the story, and science agrees. In the field of psychoacoustics, researchers find that pauses allow the brain to anticipate, to process, to feel. It is in silence that meaning grows. Now consider the way sound moves through different things. Through air, it travels fast. Through water, faster still. But through bone, it moves fastest of all. That means your own body is the most efficient conductor of sound you'll ever know. A violin played against your shoulder will sound brighter. A whisper against your spine might echo in your ribs. We are, each of us, instruments tuned to the world around us. And when the world grows quiet, we become more aware of our own resonance. People who lose their sight often report a deepening of other senses, especially sound. They hear more detail, more direction, but they also feel sound more. Not emotionally, physically, The rumble of a truck, the flutter of pigeons' wings. These are not just auditory experiences, they are spatial, they are environmental. They form a kind of internal map. For someone without sight, sound paints not only the shape of the world, but its colour, its movement, its rhythm. And when silence replaces sound, the world does not vanish, it becomes more intimate. In a dark cave, bats emit high-pitched chirps that bounce off surfaces and return. Their brains calculate the delay. They build a picture, a real-time map. But what's stunning is that these pictures are not flat. They have depth, texture, emotion. A mother bat can find her pup among thousands by recognizing a single tone in the pup's returning echo. This is sound as vision, as memory, as connection. And it all happens in the dark. Humans can learn something similar. Echolocation in blind humans has been documented, not just as a curiosity, but as a real trainable skill. Using clicks or taps, some individuals can see doorways, identify walls, even recognize objects by sound reflection alone. Their brains light up in ways similar to sighted individuals using their eyes, which suggests something profound. The brain is not limited by its inputs. It adapts, it listens, it learns to see in new ways, especially when the world grows quiet. Let's return to the idea of colour. Not visual colour, but emotional colour. The kind you feel when someone speaks softly beside you in the dark, or when a memory drifts in at midnight, wrapped in a familiar scent. These moments are coloured not by light, but by tone, timbre, silence. In neuroscience, synesthesia is a condition where senses blend. Some people see colours when they hear sounds, others taste shapes, but perhaps all of us, in silence, begin to notice the edges between our senses softening. The world becomes dreamlike, gentle, and in that dream, sound is not a thing you hear, but a place you enter. A room with no walls, yet full of meaning. A shape with no outline, yet easy to feel. When sound disappears, and you're left with only the soft hum of your own body, you may start to realize you're not separate from the silence. You're part of it, a note in its endless song. And so in darkness, with your ears open and your eyes closed, the shape of silence becomes clearer. You feel the weight of it, the texture, the temperature. You feel the absence of what was and the promise of what could come. In that stillness, in that waiting, in that gentle breath between sounds, you are surrounded by a presence older than words. It is not lonely, it is not cold, it is simply the space where life prepares to speak. Now drift gently to the edges of everything you've felt so far. You've walked through the soft hum of silence, heard its echoes in darkness, and traced its shapes with your skin. But silence, like sound, is more than sensation. It is a story, a language without words, and sometimes it speaks the loudest when everything else is still. The question is no longer just what sound looks like in the dark, but what silence becomes when we learn to see it differently. Close your eyes again. Think of a thunderstorm far away. You do not hear it yet, but something inside you does. A pressure shift, a stirring in the air. Before the first rumble reaches your ears, the world quiets itself. Birds stop singing, trees stand still, animals pause. Nature, in its deepest rhythms, listens. It listens not for noise, but for change, for the silence that comes before a sound. That silence is not empty, it's full of attention. In our fast world, silence has become rare. The constant noise of machines, of screens, of traffic and thoughts, it builds like a storm inside our minds. But the body remembers a different rhythm, a slower one. The body remembers the hush of dusk, the stillness before dawn, the way wind sounds when it moves through trees without being chased. When you return to that stillness, even for a moment, your entire system breathes differently. Your heart slows, your thoughts soften, your cells seem to lean inward, as if listening for something sacred. In this state, the brain does something remarkable. It begins to synchronize. Neurons fire not in chaotic bursts, but in smooth, slow waves. This is what scientists call alpha and theta rhythms, brain states linked to rest, creativity, and deep memory. It's during these moments, often in silence, that ideas surface. Solutions emerge. Insights rise like mist over water. Not forced, simply allowed. Silence becomes a kind of mind mirror, reflecting not the world but the soul inside it. Now think of ancient places, temples, caves, cathedrals. They were built with silence in mind. Their walls absorb sound. Their high ceilings stretch echoes into long, fading sighs. These spaces are not silent because they are empty. They are silent so that something deeper can be heard. Breath, prayer, the low murmur of thought becoming feeling. In these spaces, silence is honoured, not avoided, not feared. It is seen as sacred. In deep meditation, practitioners speak of hearing sounds that do not come from the outside, a bell with no source, a hum with no origin. Some believe this is the nervous system resonating as it quiets. Others say it is memory itself, not of events, but of being. The body remembering its own existence before distraction, before words, before noise. It is the sound of awareness, returning. The physics of consciousness is as fascinating as its feeling. In an anechoic chamber, a room designed to eliminate all echoes, sound behaves differently. Without reflection, your voice feels as though it dies in the air. You become aware of the internal sounds, your breath, your heartbeat, even the creak of your joints. It can be unsettling, yet it's also deeply humanizing. It reminds you that even in silence, life is speaking. Silence also reveals things we normally miss. A scientist listening to underwater microphones once noticed a strange rhythmic clicking. It turned out to be the language of squid. Another heard low booming beneath the Antarctic ice, sounds from the movement of glaciers. These sounds were always there, but only in quiet did they rise into perception. The world, it seems, is always speaking. It is we who must learn to hear. Even the stars have voices. Astronomers record the vibrations of distant celestial objects, black holes, pulsars, the echo of the Big Bang, and translate them into sound. These are not sounds in space where no air exists to carry waves, but patterns of energy. Still, when we listen to these recordings, we hear something ancient, a deep trembling hum, a cosmic heartbeat. Perhaps this too is what silence sounds like at the edge of time. Now return to your own breath. It too makes a sound, subtle, gentle. The inhale, cool and quiet. The exhale, warm and soft. When we sit in silence and simply breathe, we create a rhythm, a pulse. We become part of the soundscape, no longer observers but participants. And in this moment, sound and silence are no longer opposites. They are partners, one giving shape to the other. In many traditions, the act of deep listening is considered a form of devotion, not to a deity necessarily, but to presence, to truth, to life itself. When a person listens, truly listens, they give their full self. No interruption, no agenda, just stillness and attention. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active, alive, a space where trust can grow, where understanding can bloom, where the soul can speak. Children too understand this in ways we forget. Watch a child sit quietly beneath a tree, eyes wide. They are not bored, they are immersed, listening to wind, to birds, to ants moving across bark. Their silence is not emptiness, it is fullness, curiosity, awe. As we grow older, we fill silence with answers, but maybe, in the end, it is the questions that silence holds best. So what does sound look like in the dark? Maybe it looks like a shimmer, the way moonlight dances on water you can't see. Maybe it feels like memory, a shape returning without a name. Maybe it's warmth, the kind that reaches you not through the skin, but through the space between thoughts. In truth, sound in darkness becomes something new, not just heard, not just seen, but remembered, felt, imagined. And silence becomes the canvas, the sky before stars, the breath before words, the space where everything waits, patient and whole. It is not the absence of life, but the quiet rhythm beneath it, the soft music of being. And when we truly listen, when we enter the dark with our ears open and our hearts still, we begin to see it, not with our eyes, but with something deeper, something timeless. There is a colour to that silence, not one you can paint, but one you can carry, in your chest, in your sleep, in the sea spaces between sounds. And when the world grows loud again, as it always does, you'll still feel it. Like a soft thread pulling you home, the colour of silence, the sound of being. the light you never knew you saw. Inside your mind, thoughts do not float like clouds or rise like smoke. They move with intention. They spiral, they shimmer, they connect like stars across a midnight sky. Every idea, every memory, every dream you've ever touched begins as a flicker. Not of light, but of electricity. A quiet spark deep in the folds of the brain. And that spark, though impossibly small, draws shapes. Shapes made not of lines or colour, but of meaning. The brain is not a single thing, but a forest. Billions of trees, neurons, reach toward each other, sending signals through branches called axons, receiving them through leaves called dendrites. When you think of something, a childhood toy, the scent of rain, the face of someone you love, your brain lights up like a firefly grove. Regions whisper to each other. They pass notes. They sketch outlines. This is the shape of a thought, invisible, electric, alive. Neuroscientists once believed that memories lived in one place, like books on a shelf. But now they know the truth is softer, stranger. Memories are everywhere. A single recollection, say the sound of your mother's laugh, may be stored in parts. The tone in the auditory cortex, the warmth in the amygdala, the face in the visual field. When you remember, the brain rebuilds the whole moment piece by piece, like weaving together threads from all over the loom. But how does a thought begin? It starts with input, a sound, a touch, a word. That sensation travels to the thalamus, a gentle relay station. The thalamus decides where to send the message. If it's something you've felt before, the brain may recognize it immediately. If not, it gets filed, stored, sorted. In this way, your brain is a living artist, constantly drawing and redrawing the map of your world. Now imagine this. Every time you recall a memory, it changes slightly, like a painting exposed to light. This is not failure, it is nature. Memory is not a recording, it is a relationship. Each act of remembering strengthens some connections, weakens others. What you remember is not just what happened, but how you feel about it now. The past is not fixed, it breathes. Let's drift deeper. The hippocampus, shaped like a tiny seahorse tucked beneath the surface of your brain, is the gatekeeper of memory. When something matters, when it makes you feel or teaches or surprises, the hippocampus holds on to it. Not forever, but long enough to decide, is this worth keeping? If yes, the memory is sent elsewhere for storage. If no, it fades. Not lost, simply let go. This process of letting go is essential. Your brain receives more information in a day than it could ever carry, so it must forget. But forgetting is not failure either. It's a kind of wisdom. It leaves room for new thoughts to grow, for new shapes to be drawn. The mind is not a vault, but a garden. What you water thrives. What you neglect gently returns to the soil. Think of dreams. At night, when the world goes quiet and your body rests, the brain begins to sort through the day's shapes. Some are filed, others become stories, strange drifting stories filled with symbols and echoes. In dreams, the brain draws thoughts without logic. It plays, it explores, and sometimes, in that play, it discovers something real, something waiting. Electrical pulses called brainwaves rise and fall with your state of mind. When you're alert, beta waves flicker quickly. When calm, alpha waves ripple gently. In deep sleep or deep thought, delta and theta waves roll in slow, soft patterns. These waves shape the rhythm of thinking. They guide the brush of your inner painter, helping form the shape of what you feel but cannot name. Children's brains are especially plastic, a term scientists use to describe flexibility. Every experience leaves a mark. Neurons grow, stretch, branch. In early childhood, the brain forms more connections than it ever will again. It is as if the brain throws out countless threads, waiting to see which will be tied, and over time it keeps the strong ones and prunes the rest. In this way, the shape of a thought becomes the shape of a person. But even adults can grow new patterns. Neuroplasticity never ends. Learning a new language, practicing a skill, even being still and attentive, all of these things help the brain shape itself. It is a sculptor, yes, but also the clay. Every moment it molds and is molded. What you think you become, what you feel you grow. Scientists have begun to map the brain using tools like fMRI and EEG. These maps are not of roads or rivers, but of activity. light blooming across a dark canvas. When a person recalls a loved one, the map glows in certain regions. When they feel joy, another. And while each brain is unique, the patterns echo across us all. We are different, but made of the same sparks. Language itself is a shape of thought. Before a word is spoken, it exists as an intention. The brain gathers the right sounds, the grammar, the tone. Then it sends signals to muscles in the throat, the tongue, the lips. Words are the physical shadows of silent thoughts, and even when not spoken, the act of forming words internally shapes how we feel. Language, then, is both mirror and tool. Now pause. Consider the last thought you had, the one before this one. You may not remember it exactly, but it left a trace, a shape, a small ripple in the ocean of your mind. And even as it faded, another rose in its place. This endless dance, this gentle flow is the heartbeat of consciousness, the space where thoughts rise and fall and where you, the observer, quietly drift. And so the shape of a thought is not static. It moves, it shifts, it adapts, but it is real. It is science. It is poetry. And every time you think, every time you wonder, feel, remember, or dream, your brain lights its stars, connects its branches, and draws the world anew from within. Thoughts are invisible, but their trails are not. Deep in the neural pathways of your brain, each thought leaves behind a mark, a strengthening of a connection, a whisper of electricity down a path slightly more worn than before. Over time, these pathways become familiar. They guide attention, shape behavior, and color the way we perceive the world. In this way, the brain becomes a reflection of the thoughts it has most often, like a landscape slowly carved by flowing water. When you learn something new, neurons reach toward each other. Their tips release chemicals, neurotransmitters, which leap across tiny gaps called synapses. If this exchange happens again and again, the bond strengthens, the brain learns, the synapses become more efficient, more eager. This is called long-term potentiation, the biological basis of memory and learning. It is how thoughts turn into habits, how knowledge takes root, how understanding grows from repetition. But it's not just repetition that shapes thought. Emotion is a powerful sculptor. A moment of fear, wonder, or joy burns brighter in the brain than a neutral one. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped region deep in the brain, marks these experiences as important. It tells the hippocampus, remember this. And so, emotional memories often feel sharper, more vivid, more permanent. The thought becomes more than a thought. It becomes a feeling that can be relived again and again. This is why smell is so deeply tied to memory. The olfactory bulb which processes scent is directly connected to the amygdala and hippocampus. A single breath of something familiar, pine needles, cinnamon, old books, can bring forth an entire world. Not just the image, but the feeling, the light in the room, the sound of voices, the shape of that moment as it once lived inside you. These memories are not logical. They are layered, textured, whole, and yet the brain is not always accurate. It fills in gaps, smooths rough edges, rewrites endings. This is not deception, but design. The brain values coherence, a story that fits. And so, when parts of a memory are missing, it creates its own logic. A soft invention. This is why eyewitness accounts can differ. Why siblings remember the same day in different colours. Memory is not a file. It is a painting, touched up each time it's viewed. Let's drift now into how thoughts move. Some thoughts come in slowly, like fog creeping across a field. Others strike fast, a flash of insight in the quiet. These are often called aha moments, when disparate pieces suddenly click into place. Neuroscience has found that such moments are linked to bursts of activity in the right temporal lobe. Just before insight, brainwaves shift from beta to alpha, a relaxed, open state. Then the puzzle completes itself. A thought finds its shape. Creativity, too, has its own flow. It does not belong to just one part of the brain. It moves between networks, the default mode network, which handles daydreaming and internal reflection, the executive network, which manages focus and planning, and the salience network, which chooses what deserves attention. Together, they allow you to imagine what isn't real yet, to connect distant dots, to dream. When artists say they lose themselves in creation, science agrees. During deep creative flow, activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for self-monitoring, decreases, time blurs, self-consciousness fades. The brain stops analysing and starts becoming. It allows thought to shape itself without judgment. This is why painting, writing, dancing, even walking alone with your thoughts can feel like falling into another world. But thoughts are not just personal, they are social. When two people speak, their brain activity begins to synchronize, a phenomenon called neural coupling. The speaker's brain and the listener's brain mirror each other in rhythm, in tone, even in the pattern of activation. In this way, communication is not just words passing through the air. It is thought becoming shared. Two minds briefly aligned. Even silence between people can shape thoughts. A shared quiet can say more than a sentence. A pause can carry weight, comfort, tension, or peace. The absence of sound becomes a canvas for thought to paint itself between hearts. The shape of a thought is not always verbal. It can be a glance, a gesture, a breath held together in stillness. And still, there is more. The unconscious mind, that vast silent reservoir beneath awareness, holds thoughts we do not hear. It processes information constantly, scanning for danger, solving problems, noticing patterns. A decision may rise in you before you even know why. A word appears on your tongue before your mind prepares it. These are the deep shapes, the quiet currents that steer the ship while you sail the surface. Meditation offers a window into these deeper layers. When you sit still and let thoughts rise and fall without judgment, you begin to see them differently. Not as commands, but as clouds, temporary, shifting. A thought about worry drifts in. You see it, you breathe, it passes. Another comes, you observe. Over time, the brain rewires itself. It becomes less reactive, more spacious. The shapes of thought become softer, more fluid. Now imagine the mind as a sky. Some days it is clear, a single bright thought shining through. Other days it is full of storm clouds, worry, noise, distraction. But beneath it all, the sky remains. Thoughts come and go, but the awareness that sees them is constant. And in that awareness, you begin to see the shape of your thoughts not as burdens, but as visitors. Not as you, but within you. And in that stillness, something changes. You realize that thoughts are not facts. They are shapes, yes, but shapes that you can soften, that you can question, that you can redraw. You're not the story you tell yourself, you're the space where stories are born, the canvas, the page, the quiet field where meaning finds its first breath. And so each thought is a beginning, a flicker that lights the next. And though they may disappear as quickly as they come, the shape they leave behind endures. In your choices, in your words, in the gentle way you reach for others. The brain continues to draw, and even in silence, especially in silence, and with each shape you are becoming, the shape of a thought is never still. It is a motion, a breath, a quiet unfolding that begins before we notice and continues long after we've moved on. Deep inside the folds of your brain, thoughts rise like tides. Some are gentle, barely brushing the edge of awareness. Others come crashing, loud and bright, demanding your attention. But all of them leave traces, patterns of activity, subtle chemical trails, the lingering echo of something felt and understood. These traces, even when forgotten, become part of the architecture of who you are. Scientists have discovered that your brain changes itself constantly. Not just when you're learning, but even as you rest, even as you sleep. This phenomenon, called neuroplasticity, is the brain's way of keeping itself alive, awake, adaptive. Every new experience, every soft moment of reflection stretches the map of the mind. Pathways branch, some fade, some deepen. And in this forest of signals, identity is drawn like sunlight through leaves, shifting, flickering, alive. Think now of the moments that shaped you, a kind word spoken when you needed it, a sudden realization in the quiet, a sentence in a book that lingered for years. These weren't just memories, they were transformations. One thought leading to another, until your world changed, not because the world moved, but because something inside you did. In this way, the shape of a thought is a doorway, a gentle threshold between what is and what could be. Memory researchers speak of engrams, physical changes in the brain that represent a memory, not just where the memory is stored, but how it's built, how it connects to emotion, to identity, to action. When you remember something important, it's not like opening a drawer and pulling it out whole. It's more like weaving a tapestry from threads stored all across the loom. The brain gathers them, sensory details, emotional tones, narrative meaning, and together they form the memory anew. But there is beauty in the imperfection. The fact that our memories change each time we recall them is not a flaw, but a feature. It means that our minds are alive, fluid, responsive. We are not made of stone, we are made of story. A thought is not a fixed sculpture. It is a moving dance, a gentle echo that changes with the wind of time, the breath of feeling, the light of who we are becoming. Let's drift now into silence, not the absence of thought, but the pause between them. The brain does not stop thinking, even when you believe it has. In moments of rest, the default mode network activates. This system wanders through past and future, connecting ideas, forming understanding, mending threads you didn't know were broken. This is the brain's soft background work, not noisy, but essential. A kind of inner dreaming. Some of our greatest insights come from this space. A quiet walk, a gaze into the trees, a soft breath before sleep. These are not empty moments. They are sacred ground. The mind, freed from distraction, finally has space to draw without interruption. It sketches quietly, gently linking what matters. This is why rest is not laziness. It is creation. It is thought learning to sing. And in this music of the mind, certain rhythms repeat. Patterns of thought you carry daily, your worries, your hopes, your habits, carve deep grooves. Like rivers wearing down stone, these grooves can become so familiar that they shape every other thought. But awareness is the first tool for change. When you notice a pattern, you've already begun to shift it. You're not stuck in your thoughts. You're watching them. And in that watching, you can redraw the lines. There is a therapy called cognitive restructuring. It helps people reshape their thoughts by questioning them, challenging their edges, reframing what they mean. A single thought, "I'm not good enough," can feel like a wall. But when softened, examined, spoken aloud in a safe space, that wall can become a window. The thought doesn't disappear. It changes, and in that change, healing begins. The shape becomes something new, kinder, truer, more whole. Now imagine the mind as a gallery, and each thought a painting. Some are vivid, some are half-finished, some finished. Some you pass without noticing. Others stop you, hold you, speak to something deep inside. The gallery is always expanding, always rearranging. You do not choose every thought, but you can choose how long you stand before each one. What you give your attention to becomes the curator. And with attention, even an old thought can be seen in new light. This is why mindfulness matters. It is not about clearing the mind, but observing it. Watching thoughts rise and fall like leaves on water. No judgment, just noticing. And in this gentle noticing, space opens up. You see the thought not as a command, but as a suggestion. Not as a truth, but as a moment. This shift is quiet, but profound. It is the difference between being pulled by a current and floating above it, eyes open, heart still. Even language, that powerful tool of thought, is shaped by silence. The pause before a word, the breath between sentences. These spaces give meaning. A poem is not just its lines, it is also the air that surrounds them. A conversation is not just what is said, but what is felt in the unsaid. In this way, silence and thought are woven together, each giving form to the other. At the edge of neuroscience and philosophy lies a question that cannot yet be answered. What is a thought made of, truly? Not just the electrical pulses or chemical shifts, but the experience of thinking, the feeling of an idea taking shape inside you. Some call it consciousness, others call it the soul. Whatever it is, it moves in you now. It rises, it rests, it wanders, and in that wandering it becomes real. So when you feel lost in thought, know that you are never truly lost. You are travelling. You are walking paths made of electricity and memory, of emotion and language. Each turn, each step, each pause is shaping you. And though you may not see the map, you are drawing it as you go. The shape of a thought is more than science. It is softness, airshness, it is story. It is the quiet miracle that happens every moment you exist. And if you listen, not just with ears, but with presence, you can feel it. a shimmer behind the eyes, a flutter in the chest, a warmth in the breath, the brain quietly painting, the self gently becoming. As the moon rises and seems to pause, it hangs in the sky, not as a spotlight, but as a breath held in the vast lungs of night. You watch it from your window, not moving, not blinking, just still. But is anything ever truly still? Beneath the moon's gentle glow, the world keeps turning, the oceans breathe, the stars hum quietly above. Stillness, it seems, is not the absence of motion, but a kind of balance, a whisper between forces, where everything moves just enough to feel quiet. In physics, stillness is called equilibrium, the state where forces cancel each other out, where motion slows not because it has stopped, but because every push has found its pull. Imagine holding a string between your fingers. Pull from both sides with equal strength and the string does not move, yet energy flows through it. Tension lives in its silence. This is the secret of stillness. It is never empty. It is full of invisible conversations. On the smallest scales, the world never rests. Even in objects that seem motionless, a rock, a mountain, a sleeping cat, atoms vibrate. They jiggle with energy, bouncing gently against one another. This is thermal motion, and it never stops. Not unless you reach a place called absolute zero, a temperature so cold motion nearly halts. But even then, quantum mechanics suggests there is still uncertainty, still fluctuation, still the ghost of movement tucked deep in the silence. Stillness, then, is relative. A book on a table may seem still to your eyes, but that table is on a planet spinning at over 1,000 kilometers per hour. That planet orbits the sun, which itself races around the galaxy. The galaxy moves too, pulled by gravity, nudged by the dark matter, drifting through cosmic tides. Everything moves. Always. But from our tiny perspective, the book does not fall, the room does not shake. Our senses gift us a moment of stillness in a universe that never stops dancing. Let's drift into space for a moment. Out there, where air no longer carries sound, motion becomes quieter still. Satellites float, planets glide, and in the vast emptiness, objects continue until something stops them. This is inertia, Newton's first law, the idea that an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon. In space, a pebble tossed from your hand would travel forever, unless it met another force. Stillness in space is not the same as stillness on Earth. It's not a lack of motion, but the pure continuation of it. Even light, the fastest thing we know, moves without rest. It has no mass, no resistance, it doesn't slow down or tire. But when light meets stillness, when it reflects off a calm lake or enters a quiet room, it transforms the space. Suddenly, the stillness becomes visible. You can see the silence. You can feel the way it holds the light like a soft hand holding water. This is not illusion. It is the quiet power of reflection. Now turn inward. Inside your own body, stillness can feel like a stop, a held breath, a closed eye, a moment of no motion. But beneath that surface, the heart beats, blood moves, cells communicate, thoughts rise. Even in meditation, when your limbs do not stir, your mind flows like a stream. This is what science shows us. Stillness is not absence, but alignment. It is the moment when everything moves in harmony, so gently, so evenly, that it feels like rest. On a molecular level, the brain never sleeps. Neurons fire, repair, reorganize. During deep rest, the glymphatic system clears waste from the brain, like a nighttime janitor sweeping the quiet halls of thought. This cleaning only happens during stillness. The mind needs rest to reset. Stillness then becomes a form of healing, not because the body stops, but because it focuses. It devotes its energy inward, to repair, to restore, to renew. And when you feel still, not just physically but emotionally, the body shifts into a different mode. The parasympathetic nervous system activates, slowing the heart, deepening the breath. The muscles soften, the skin cools. Hormones of stress ease away, replaced by chemicals of peace, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. Stillness is not just a mood, it is a physiological state, a signal to the body that it is safe, that it can soften, that it can let go. In ancient traditions, stillness is sacred. It is where wisdom is found. The still water reflects the stars more clearly than the rippling sea. The quiet cave reveals echoes not heard on windy plains. Monks sit for hours in stillness, not to escape the world, but to become more present in it, to listen, to feel the shape of time as it moves around and through them. Science, too, begins to echo this truth, that stillness opens doors not just to peace, but to understanding. Let's return to the moon. Sometimes clouds pass in front of it. You think it has moved, but it is you, or the world, or the cloud, or the rotation of the sky. Stillness, again, is a matter of frame, a matter of perspective. The moon does not shine its own light. It reflects the sun, but in that quiet reflection, it becomes a beacon, a gentle eye in the night, a symbol of steadiness in a shifting sky. This reflection is more than metaphor. It is physics. Light bounces off the moon's surface, a mix of rock and dust, and returns to our eyes. The texture of that surface determines the glow. Smooth spots shine more brightly. Rougher areas scatter light. What looks like still silver is, in fact, a complex dance of photons and minerals. Stillness once again reveals its hidden motion. And in the silence of the night, the moon's stillness invites your own. You breathe more slowly, your thoughts soften. You begin to feel time differently, not as seconds ticking past, but as space unfolding around you. A moment stretches, a memory rises, a sense of presence returns. The physics of stillness merges with the feeling of it, and you are both grounded and lifted. Stillness is not the opposite of energy. It is its resting place, its home. Just as a wave returns to calm water, just as a bird folds its wings, just as a thought exhales into quiet, stillness holds the promise of return, a promise that even after motion there is peace, that after every storm there is a pause, that after every breath there is another waiting to begin. The stillness of the cosmos is not a silence, but a rhythm so slow, so vast it feels like quiet to our ears. Galaxies drift like lanterns on a dark river, their movements stretched across millions of years. Stars pulse with light, but their stories unfold too gradually to be seen in a single lifetime. When we gaze at the night sky, it feels still, but it is full of motion. What we mistake for stillness is often time unfolding on a different scale. We are watching a slow dance too grand to hear. On Earth, stillness shows itself in places where time seems to hold its breath. In the hush of snowfall, the reflection on a pond, the pause between thunder and its echo. These moments, delicate and rare, touch something ancient inside us. They return us to a natural rhythm, one that predates language, noise, urgency. Scientists have found that time feels slower when we are present. In stillness we notice more. The brain records more detail and the moment expands. Stillness invites awareness. In a lab, researchers observed that when participants entered a quiet, unstimulated environment, no screens, no talking, no tasks, their brains didn't power down. Instead, they lit up. The default mode network activated, responsible for memory, imagination, and introspection. In other words, in stillness the mind begins to wander. But this wandering is not aimless. It is reflective. It organizes. It remembers. It makes meaning. This is why ideas often come in the shower, on a walk, in bed before sleep. Not because the brain is idle, but because it's finally free from noise. When we stop forcing thought, thought finds us. A physicist once said that he solved his hardest problems not in the lab, but while sitting beside a tree watching the wind. Stillness is not the absence of work, it's a different kind of work. A work of waiting, of trusting. In nature, animals embody this stillness. A heron in the reeds, unmoving, waiting for the smallest ripple. A cat in sunlight, resting completely, eyes half closed. A deer in the forest, ears turning slowly, body quiet but alert. This stillness is not laziness. It is attention. It is the body listening to the world with every sense open. In this state, even the smallest detail becomes a signal. A whisper in the grass, a change in the wind, a promise or a warning. Humans too have this capacity, but in modern life it is easy to forget. The hum of machines, the weight of schedules, the flood of information, all of it pulls us away from stillness. Yet the body remembers. When we slow down, sit beneath a tree, close our eyes, breathe with intention, something ancient wakes. The pulse of the earth, the rhythm of breath, the soft beating of our own hearts, they begin to align. Inside your body, stillness is not a pause in life, but life expressing itself more subtly. The lungs expand and release. The blood flows gently. Hormones shift. Muscles let go. When you rest deeply, your immune system strengthens, your cells repair damage, your brain clears waste. This is not passive. It is active restoration. The science of sleep and rest reveals that stillness is where healing begins. Monks and mystics have always known this. In caves, in deserts, in forests, they sought silence not to escape the world, but to become more present within it. Stillness was their teacher. It revealed truths hidden by noise. It softened the boundaries between thought and being. In recent years, neuroscience has begun to affirm these ancient insights. Meditation, for example, reshapes the brain. Regular practice thickens the cortex in areas linked to attention, empathy, and memory. Stillness, it seems, rewires us toward clarity. Let's return to the moon again. During a lunar eclipse, when the Earth's shadow falls across the moon's face, everything feels hushed. The light dims, the air shifts, time stretches. People look upward, and for a brief moment, the sky becomes a mirror, showing not just the moon, but our place beneath it. The eclipse doesn't stop the moon's motion, but it invites stillness in us. Awe silences thought. Wonder softens time. In this pause, the mind becomes spacious, wide enough to hold paradox, that we are small yet full of galaxies, that we are fragile yet luminous, that stillness is not emptiness but depth. These thoughts do not arrive with noise. They come quietly, in the breath between distractions, in the quiet between questions, in the stillness where truth feels less like a sentence and more like a presence. Even in cities full of engines, sirens, voices, stillness can be found. Early morning streets, a quiet elevator ride, a moment at a window, watching rain slide down glass. These fragments of stillness are not luxuries. They're essential. They are the body's way of resetting, the mind's way of remembering what matters, the spirit's way of listening for its own voice. Stillness teaches you that not all progress is forward. Some growth happens in place. Roots deepen in stillness, ideas mature in quiet. Love expands in silence. The pause between heartbeats, the space between notes in a melody, the moment between inhale and exhale, these are not interruptions, they are part of the song. In physics, potential energy lives in stillness, a spring held in tension, a ball resting at the top of a hill. These moments are full of possibility. The stillness is not a stop, it is a gathering, a preparing, a storing of motion yet to come. The same is true in life. A quiet season may feel empty, but it may be preparing you for something vast, something waiting for the right time to begin. And so, stillness is not passive, it is a choice, a practice, a place of power. It is where we listen, reflect, connect. It is where we remember we are not machines, but living beings. It is where science and spirit meet, in the quiet breath of being. In stillness we find our shape, we find our rhythm, we find ourselves. Stillness, at its deepest level, is not a lack of energy, but a rebalancing of it. It is the hush before change, the breath before a leap, the long pause that lets life gather itself inward. In the language of physics, even the most motionless-seeming state contains the seeds of action. A pendulum at its peak holds potential energy, invisible, silent, patient. In the next moment it will swing, but before it does it waits. That pause, though quiet, is alive with possibility. Just like us, our bodies understand this rhythm, they live by it. The beating of the heart is not constant motion, it is motion balanced by stillness. Between each beat there is a pause, a space. The heart does not rush from one pulse to the next. It rests, then moves. Breath follows the same rhythm. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. In those pauses, we are not inactive. We are integrating, returning, allowing what came before to settle before something new begins. On a cellular level, this pattern continues. During deep rest, our cells enter repair mode. DNA is checked and mended. Toxins are cleared. Hormones rebalance. None of this feels dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. But it is crucial. Life depends not just on action, but on recovery, on quiet cycles of restoration. Stillness is the space in which life renews itself. In the vastness of the universe, there are places that seem still beyond imagination. Neutron stars, the collapsed remnants of massive suns, appear to hover motionless in the black, but inside them, density defies comprehension. A single teaspoon of a neutron star would weigh billions of tons. Their stillness is not peace, it is pressure balanced so perfectly, so intensely that motion cannot escape. Stillness here is the result of forces so great they hold each other completely in check. And still there is beauty in that. Just as the sun is born from collapse, just as stars shine from the stillness of nuclear fusion, so too are we shaped by the quiet pressures of life. Moments that seem like stillness, waiting, pausing, reflecting, often hold the most energy. The energy of becoming, of preparing for what's next. In human life, stillness takes many forms: the quiet walk beneath trees, the few seconds before you speak, the hours spent alone with your thoughts. These are not empty spaces. They are the places where we recenter, where we sift through noise and find meaning, where we touch the thread of something larger than ourselves, something ancient and wide and waiting. Spiritual traditions have long honoured the power of stillness. In silence, monks chant inwardly. In prayer, breath slows to meet the rhythm of the divine. In grief, stillness becomes a sanctuary, a place to feel without interruption. In joy, it is the fullness after laughter, the softness of presence when words are no longer needed. Stillness carries all emotion, all thought, all time. It holds us when we cannot hold ourselves. And science too comes to stillness for answers. In laboratories, experiments pause for observation. Telescopes sit quietly for hours collecting light from stars millions of years away. Every image, every breakthrough begins in the decision to stop and wait, to listen longer, to look deeper. Knowledge does not always arrive with speed. Sometimes it appears in the hush, in the gaps between questions. Think of the seasons. Winter is the earth's great stillness. Plants withdraw, animals hibernate. The world breathes inward. And yet beneath the frozen soil, roots grow. Seeds prepare. Ice preserves what spring will need. This pattern is mirrored in us. Times of rest are not the end of motion. They are part of its cycle. Necessary, beautiful, full. The moon once again becomes our companion in this reflection. Though it orbits constantly, its phases remind us of rhythm. Full, empty, full again. At its darkest, the new moon disappears entirely. Yet we do not fear its absence. We understand its return. The stillness of the dark moon is not a vanishing, but a becoming. The quiet space between shine. Within us, there is a stillness that does not depend on silence. It can be touched even in busy moments, a centre that holds steady no matter the swirl. This inner stillness is not about stopping thought or escaping emotion. It is about becoming so present that even chaos softens, so aware that even noise becomes music, so open that even sorrow has space to breathe. This is not philosophy alone, it is practice. A moment taken before speaking, a breath before reacting, a pause in the middle of tension. These are ways of honouring stillness as a living part of every day. Like a clear pool that reflects the sky, stillness allows us to see more clearly, not just the world, but ourselves. In the end, stillness is not something we find, it is something we return to. A home within the motion, a quiet room behind the thoughts, a deep part of ourselves that remains untouched by noise, untouched by rush. The moon does not forget to shine, it simply changes how it gives its light. And we too do not lose our clarity, we simply forget how to be still enough to see it. So take this moment, let everything settle, let your breath deepen, let your mind grow spacious. Stillness is not the end of your story. It is the quiet ground where your next chapter begins. It is not what happens when everything stops. It is what allows everything to begin again. In stillness, you are whole, you are ready, you are home. There is a light inside you, quiet and ancient. You cannot see it with your eyes, but your body knows it. It shines not from your skin or your hair, but from somewhere deeper, within your bones. These bones, silent and strong, hold more than structure. They hold memory, they hold rhythm, and within them there is a shimmer, a living glow of biology and time, a light that pulses with every breath you take and every step you make. To understand this light, we begin with something simple: calcium. This element, soft in its pure form, becomes a foundation in your body. It is stored mostly in the bones, nearly 99% of it. But it does more than build. It moves. When a muscle contracts, calcium signals it. When a nerve fires, calcium opens the gates. When you feel, think, remember, somewhere in the chain of events, calcium flows. It glows faintly under certain conditions. Scientists call this bioluminescence of function, tiny sparks of light as cells communicate. In the laboratory, researchers use dyes that glow when calcium is present. Under a microscope, living cells flicker and flash, each pulse like a firefly in slow motion. These are not random lights. They are messages, a signal that says move, or feel, or grow. Your bones, then, are not passive scaffolding. They are living, sensing, speaking tissues. They hold calcium, release it, take it back. They glow with the conversation of life, and deeper still, within the bone marrow, blood is born. Every day, millions of new blood cells rise from the dark quiet of the marrow. Red cells, white cells, platelets, all shaped and sculpted in this unseen chamber. The process is not chaotic. It is guided by tiny chemical signals, temperature, pressure, and yes, by light. Not the kind that enters through the eye, but the kind generated by the mitochondria, the cell's engines. These tiny organelles emit photons as they create energy. This biophoton emission, faint, nearly impossible to detect without special instruments, is real. Your body, in its deepest parts, glows softly with its own power. Biophotons are part of a larger mystery. Scientists still do not fully understand their purpose. Are they byproducts of metabolism, or are they signals, a hidden language between cells? Some researchers believe cells may use these photons to communicate, much like fiber optics, a biological internet made of light. And while we cannot yet hear these messages, we can imagine their beauty, a song of flickers, a language older than sound. Your bones remember more than light. They remember movement, the tug of muscle, the pull of gravity. When you walk, dance, stretch, or stand still, your bones respond. They adapt. They grow stronger in the direction of pressure. This is Wolff's law, the principle that bone reshapes itself based on the forces it feels. In this way, your history is written in your skeleton. Not just your height or shape, but your actions, your habits, your path through space and time. Even when broken, bones do not give up. They knit themselves back together, guided by cells called osteoblasts and osteoclasts, one building, one breaking. These cells work in harmony, like sculptors. They sense damage and respond with precision. They rebuild not just what was, but what is needed. And in this rebuilding, there is light too, faint, healing, purposeful. The repair process glows with metabolic energy. Healing is not only chemistry, it is also light. Let's go deeper. At the atomic level, bones are made of collagen and hydroxyapatite, an organic protein and a mineral crystal. These crystals, small and structured, interact with electrons and photons. They can store tiny charges, respond to electromagnetic fields, and reflect infrared light. In this way, your skeleton is not inert. It is electric. It listens to the world not just through touch, but through vibration and frequency. It is tuned to the energy of life. Now step back and consider the body as a whole. Light enters through the eyes, yes, but also through the skin. Photons from the sun penetrate layers of tissue. They spark vitamin D synthesis, which begins in the skin and ends in the bones. Without sunlight, bones weaken. With it, they thrive. This is not superstition. It is science. Light feeds the skeleton. It activates the chemical dance that keeps your frame strong and flexible. But there is more. Bones are not silent partners in the body. They speak to the brain. They produce a hormone called osteocalcin, which travels through the blood and influences memory, emotion, and metabolism. When you move, your bones release signals that reach the mind. A run, a stretch, a deep breath. These are not just physical acts. They are conversations. Your skeleton telling your brain, I am alive. I am moving. I am here. This deep connection between bone and brain suggests that the skeleton is part of the mind's web, not separate, but integrated. Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories are shaped not just by neurons, but by the living light and chemistry of your bones. This is why posture matters, why stillness feels different from movement, why sorrow can make you slump and joy can lift your spine. Emotion lives in the body, and the body speaks in return. And through it all the light persists. Not a blazing fire, but a quiet glow, a shimmer that pulses with health, with healing, with history. It flickers when cells divide, when wounds mend, when thoughts rise. This light is not for seeing, it is for being. A soft radiance that marks your aliveness deep inside. So next time you feel still, remember you are glowing. Your bones are not asleep. They are listening, learning, remembering. They hold you up not just with strength, but with energy. They hum with the rhythm of motion and rest. And in their quiet chambers, the light that lives in your bones shines on. The light within your bones is not just a metaphor. It is measurable, traceable, undeniable. And yet, it remains mysterious, a language our science is only beginning to hear. These biophotons, these subtle flickers of energy, move through the body not with noise, but with intention. When cells are healthy, the light they emit is steady, rhythmic, coherent. When illness arrives, the light becomes chaotic, uneven. This has led some scientists to wonder, is light a marker of health, or is it part of health itself? Studies on biophotons suggest that healthy cells emit more consistent patterns of light, waves that seem to align, to dance in unison. This coherence, as researchers call it, mirrors the harmony we feel in balance, peace, and clarity. When we are calm, our systems align, the heart and breath synchronize, thoughts slow, muscles ease. Perhaps in these states our bodies shine more clearly. Perhaps stillness is not just a feeling, but a realignment of our light. In ancient healing traditions, this concept was known intuitively. Chinese medicine speaks of qi, a life energy that flows through meridians. Indian texts describe prana, a force that moves with breath and intention. Both systems believed that the bones held this energy, anchoring it, channeling it. While the language differs, the essence is shared. The body is not just structure, but radiance. The bones are not just support, but conduits of life's hidden fire. Modern science, cautious but sometimes curious, is starting to listen. Therapies like low-level laser light treatment, LLT, use specific wavelengths of light to stimulate healing in bone and tissue. This light doesn't just warm the skin, it penetrates to the cellular level, activating mitochondria, improving circulation, reducing inflammation. It encourages bone growth, eases pain, and accelerates repair. Once again, light touches bone and bone responds. Not passively, but actively, as if it remembers what light means. The link between light and bone extends beyond repair. Circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock, are regulated by light. When we rise with the sun and sleep in darkness, our bodies function more smoothly. Hormones release at the right times. Bones absorb and build calcium more effectively. Sleep deepens, mood improves. But when artificial light confuses this rhythm, or when darkness persists too long, the body falters. Bones become brittle, healing slows, sleep thins. It is as though the skeleton, that quiet guardian beneath the skin, depends on the sun to remember its song. Inside the bones, something even more wondrous takes place. A conversation of chemistry and time. The marrow produces stem cells, the origin of all blood. These stem cells carry potential to become red cells, white cells, immune warriors, oxygen carriers. But their decisions are not random. They listen to signals, they respond to needs. And some of those signals come in the form of light, faint but real. Photons touching molecules, shifting electrons, triggering reactions. The light does not command, but it invites. It opens doors that chemistry alone cannot explain. This dance of light and life hints at something deeper, that we are not separate from the natural world, but reflections of it. The stars emit light that travels for billions of years to reach us. That light touches our skin, enters our eyes, and continues inward, feeding processes, guiding rhythms, shaping moods. It passes into the bones, where it helps us grow, heal, and hold ourselves upright. In this way, the starlight we see is the same light that lives in us. We are not just under the sky, we are part of it. The light within the bones is slow. It doesn't flicker like a candle or pulse like a screen. It hums, It resonates and it waits. It carries information in ways we don't yet understand, and through the spaces between molecules, through the spaces between moments. And it may not speak in language, but it feels like a memory, a warmth, a presence. There are stories of people recovering from injury or illness with no clear medical explanation, only time, rest, and attention to their inner quiet. Scientists call this the placebo effect, but perhaps it is more than belief. Perhaps in those quiet hours, something shifts. A reconnection between mind and body, a realignment of energy, a softening that allows light to do what it does best. Guide healing gently and without force. Bones, too, are shaped by sound, and sound, as we know, is vibration. Ultrasound therapy uses waves beyond human hearing to stimulate bone growth. This therapy, used for fractures that are slow to heal, sends pulses into the tissue, encouraging cells to move, divide, build. The process is gentle, non-invasive and quiet, yet the bones hear. They respond, they change. In this way, vibration becomes light, and light becomes healing. Let's return to childhood for a moment. In our earliest years, bones are soft, pliable, quick to grow. Children seem to glow, not just in spirit, but in motion, in lightness, in energy. Their bones adapt rapidly, shaped by movement and touch. And as we grow older, bones become denser, more solid, more still, but stillness is not the same as silence. Deep within, that early light remains, not as fire, but as ember, as glow, waiting. The idea that the body glows is not poetic exaggeration. In a famous experiment, researchers used ultra-sensitive cameras in total darkness and captured the light emitted from healthy human bodies. The face shone brightest, followed by the hands and chest. The glow followed a rhythm peaking in the late afternoon. It was not visible to the eye, but it was there, always, a quiet reminder that we are not only made of matter, but of radiance. And your bones, buried deep within, are the lanterns of that radiance. They carry your weight, your history, your memory. They echo with the steps you've taken, the falls you've survived, the dances you've shared. They are the archive of your becoming, and within them the light never fully fades. When you sit still, when the world quiets, you may feel it, not as brightness but as warmth, as a sense of being held, as a stillness that feels full rather than empty. That is the light in your bones, not burning but being, not flashing but remembering, not seen but known. And so you carry this light wherever you go, in moments of rest, in moments of pain, in joy and movement and sleep. It hums quietly in your marrow, it flows through your spine, it flickers in the secret places of healing and change. You're not just flesh and thought, you're light, slow, patient, ancient. A glow that has always been with you and always will be. The light within you does not flicker out with time. It softens, deepens, settles, but it does not leave. Your bones, the silent pillars beneath your life, continue to hold it. As years pass and seasons turn, the light becomes less about brightness and more about presence. It is not the flame of youth or the spark of urgency. It is the steady warmth of having endured, of still being here, of holding memory without letting it burn. Elder bones are not dim. They are luminous in a different way, like embers that glow long after the fire has died down. They have felt more, carried more, healed more, every fracture mended, every ache endured, every soft moment of stillness. It's all written in their structure. Osteocytes, the cells that live within bone, continue to sense pressure, stress, and balance. They still communicate, still adapt. The bones are never done listening. They are never truly still. In old age, bones may thin, but their wisdom thickens. They reflect the life that shaped them, the paths walked, the burdens borne, the joys leapt into. This isn't just poetry, it is science. The skeleton is a dynamic record. A bone biopsy can reveal past illnesses, nutritional history, levels of physical activity, even emotional stress. The light that lives in your bones is not only metaphorical, it is evidence, a living, glowing archive of being. Some cultures understand this deeply. In traditional Chinese medicine, the kidneys are said to nourish the bones and house the essence, life force that dims with age but never disappears. In indigenous teachings, bones are sacred. They are not waste to be buried or discarded, but vessels of ancestral knowledge. In some languages, to feel it in your bones is to know something without doubt. Bones, it seems, are where certainty lives. And perhaps that's why we turn inward when we seek peace, why rest is restorative, why stillness feels like returning home. Because somewhere beneath all motion, beneath the noise and pressure and striving, there is a core of light that never asks to be seen, only remembered. That light is you, not the surface self, not the voice that narrates your day, but the deeper self shaped in marrow and silence, the part of you that simply is. When you walk, the bones of your feet strike the ground and send vibrations upward, informing the spine, adjusting posture, waking awareness. When you lie down, your skeleton stretches into the earth's pull, relaxing in ways muscles cannot. Sleep is not just for the mind, it is for the bones. It allows them to rest, to repair, to continue their quiet glow. And when you dream, that light does not dim. If anything, it moves freely, unburdened by the gravity or form. In dreams, your body forgets the limits of time, but your bones remain, a subtle tether, a reminder of the form that carries your light through waking life. Even when you feel lost in imagination, they ground you. They keep you here. They do not speak, but they never stop saying you are still here. There is a kind of calm that comes from recognizing this, a serenity that doesn't need answers because it has already survived so many questions. The bones are not in a hurry. They understand time differently. They are made to last, to witness, to outlive many of the stories we tell ourselves. In this way, they teach us something precious, that endurance is not about pushing forward, but about continuing to glow even in the dark. Consider the skeleton not as a frame, but as a cathedral. Hollow spaces where blood is born. Pillars that hold the weight of love and grief and laughter. Windows where light enters and is reflected inward. Each vertebra, rib, femur, and finger is not just a piece of anatomy. It is part of a living sanctuary, luminous with your existence. The structure of you, the vessel of your light. In medical science, researchers are now exploring how bones influence mental health. Osteocalcin, that hormone produced in the skeleton, doesn't just regulate physical functions, it also affects the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, influences neurotransmitters, modulates stress response. Your bones, quite literally, help you feel peace. They are not just storage, they are part of your emotional intelligence. This connection between structure and soul is subtle, but profound. It means that caring for your bones, through nourishment, movement, sunlight, stillness, is not only about strength, it is about presence. It is about honoring the quiet light that sustains you. When you stretch, you awaken it. When you rest, you tend to it. When you move gently, you let it sing. The glow inside your bones does not need recognition. It has always been with you. From the moment your skeleton began to form in the womb, tiny and soft and full of possibility, this light was there. It moved with you as you grew, as you fell, as you rose again. It stayed through every illness, every celebration, every silent hour. It has never stopped shining. And though others cannot see it, they can feel it. In the way you move with grace, in the steadiness of your presence, in the kindness you offer that seems to rise from nowhere. This is the light that lives in your bones, unseen but unmistakable, quiet but powerful. It is what holds you upright in a world that sometimes feels heavy. It is what remains, even when everything else fades. So tonight or tomorrow, or whenever the noise of the world grows too loud, return to yourself. Sit still, let your breath slow. Imagine your bones not as rigid but radiant, not as silent but singing. Feel their warmth, feel their patience, feel the way they have always held you. In that feeling you will find the glow, not above you, not around you, but within you. It is real, it is steady. It is the light that lives in your bones. Deep in the forest, where footsteps soften and wind speaks in leaves, trees are keeping time. Not with ticking clocks or digital screens, but with light and shadow, with roots and sap, with silent signals passed from trunk to trunk. Their way of telling time is older than ours, more patient, more precise, more rooted in the rhythm of the earth. Every tree, from the smallest sapling to the tallest giant, is tuned to a language we have only just begun to understand. The sun rises, and a tree awakens, not suddenly, but gently, as cells within the leaves open to light. This process, photosynthesis, is the first whisper of time. When sunlight touches a leaf, it begins a conversion. Light to sugar, energy to life. The tree drinks in carbon dioxide, breathes out oxygen. It does this not constantly, but cyclically. As the day moves, the process rises and falls, responding to the angle of the sun and the humidity in the air, the promise of dusk. Inside the tree, something else stirs, the circadian clock. Like animals, plants have internal rhythms. These biological clocks don't tick, but they turn. Proteins rise and fall in a dance of feedback, anticipating dawn and preparing for night. Some genes switch on only in darkness, some only in light. This rhythm helps trees know when to open their stomata, when to stretch toward the sky, when to conserve. It is not guessing, it is remembering. The tree is keeping time by listening to the sky. But trees do not live by sunlight alone. They also listen underground. Beneath the soil, their roots reach out in search of water, nutrients, and something more, connection. Through a network of fungi called the mycorrhizal web, trees send and receive signals. This network, sometimes called the wood wide web, allows trees to share resources, to warn of drought, to speak of pest invasion. Older trees, the so-called mother trees, give to younger ones. If a nearby sapling is struggling, the older tree can send it carbon. This isn't charity, it's survival, shared across time, and timing matters. These signals do not travel at the speed of electricity, but at the pace of life, slow, steady, meaningful. A tree sensing an insect attack may take hours to produce defensive chemical, but once it does, it warns others nearby through airborne cues. Leaves release volatile compounds that drift in the air like invisible messengers. Neighbouring trees, upon receiving the warning, begin their defence early. The forest becomes a chorus of chemical whispers, a slow wave of preparation, a map of time told not in seconds but in responses. Seasonal time is another rhythm trees know intimately. As days shorten, light diminishes, and the air cools, trees begin their transformation. They stop feeding their leaves. Chlorophyll breaks down, revealing the reds, oranges, and yellows hidden beneath the green. This is not decay. It is preparation, a shedding of what is no longer needed, a quiet retreat into winter. Before the first frost touches the ground, trees have already prepared. They draw sugars into their roots, lower the water content in their cells, and thicken their bark. Some even produce proteins that act like natural antifreeze. They are not waiting for cold. They are preparing for it, days or even weeks in advance. This ability to anticipate change is a form of memory, a biological calendar etched into the genetic code, shaped by millennia of seasons. And when winter arrives, trees do not sleep. They slow. They enter dormancy, a deep rest that is not death, but conservation. Metabolism drops, growth pauses, but listening continues. In this stillness, they measure the cold. They count the chill hours needed to unlock spring. When warmth returns, it is not the first bright day that wakes them. It is the sum of time passed in silence. They wait until the signs align, until the cues are certain. Then buds swell, leaves unfurl, and life begins again. Tree rings tell this story in circles. Each year a new layer is added beneath the bark, and light wood in spring, dark wood in summer. A record of rain and drought, warmth and frost. In a tree's heart, decades rest like soft ripples, each one a page in the book of time. Dendrochronologists, scientists who study these rings, can read them like history. The story of a storm, the memory of a fire, the slow rhythm of growth in a quiet glen. Every ring is a whisper. This happened, and we survived. Trees also measure time in generations. A forest is not just a collection of trees. It is a lineage. Seeds fall where old ones stood. New roots drink from ancient soil. Some trees live for hundreds, even thousands of years. Others grow quickly, die back, and feed the rest. The forest knows how to change, not in panic, but in wisdom. A kind of patience that outlasts urgency. A memory that does not need to rush. In their stillness, trees hold more time than we can imagine. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have stood in silence while cities grew around them. They have watched the stars shift slowly with each passing night. Their bodies hold the light of every sun they've seen. Their roots remember every season, every rain, every dry year. And still, they grow. When you stand beside a tree, you're not alone. You're standing beside time, not time as we know it, frantic, fractured, fast. but time that breathes, time that stretches, time that waits. And if you're quiet enough, if you listen with your breath, your skin, your stillness, you might feel it. The way a tree speaks, not in words, but in rhythm. This rhythm is not separate from you. Your body too moves in cycles. Your cells follow circadian clocks. Your heart responds to light and dark. Your emotions shift with the seasons. You too are part of this larger conversation. You too keep time, not just with watches, but with wonder. So next time you see a tree, notice its stillness. Know that within it 1,000 tiny movements are happening. That deep in its roots, messages are being sent. That in its bark, light is remembered. That in its leaves, time is kept. Not with urgency, but with grace. The tree does not need to rush. It whispers. It waits. It grows. Trees understand the passage of time through more than sun and season. They read it in wind, in rainfall, in the soft shifting of soil. Roots stretch not blindly but with intent, curving toward moisture, curling around stones, adjusting slowly as the years move beneath them. The rhythm of this growth is so slow that we do not see it, but the earth feels it. Rocks are nudged, soil is held, water is guided. A tree does not chase time, it embraces it. Science has shown that trees communicate through their roots and through the air, but their timing is what makes the conversation meaningful. Some trees release signals only at dawn. Others open their stomata, the tiny pores on their leaves, only at midday when light is strongest. These choices are not random. They are decisions born from generations of memory, coded in the DNA, shaped by weather, climate, terrain. Each tree lives in a kind of dialogue with its environment, not reacting but participating in a long, slow conversation with the time itself. Some trees mark time in extraordinary ways. In the tropics, where seasons blur, certain trees still bloom at precise intervals. The neotropical trees of the Amazon often flower all at once, across miles of forest, as if responding to a secret signal. Scientists believe this synchrony is tied to lunar cycles, rainfall patterns, and subtle shifts in light. Somehow these trees know when to begin, not just individually, but collectively. Their timing is shared. Their silence becomes symphony. Others, like the bristlecone pines of North America, grow in the most barren, wind-scoured places on Earth. These trees are among the oldest living organisms, some over 5,000 years old. They grow slowly, layer upon layer, year after quiet year. Their twisted trunks and gnarled branches are maps of endurance, shaped by centuries of weather and waiting. Their growth rings are tight, packed close, recording not abundance but resilience. They are the keepers of time, not by measuring it in speed but in persistence. Even fallen trees tell time. A log in the forest is not the end of a life, but the beginning of another rhythm. As it decays, it feeds fungi, shelters insects, grows moss and small plants. It becomes a nurse log, supporting new saplings with its stored nutrients. This cycle is slow, lasting decades. It is death, but it is not the end. It is time transforming, one body making room for another. The clock of the forest ticking in layers we cannot hear. Within each tree, hormones like auxin and cytokinin help regulate time as well. They guide growth, manage direction, determine when a branch reaches toward light or a root turns toward darkness. These messengers flow like slow rivers inside the tree's body, responding to cues, adjusting constantly. Trees don't just respond to time, they shape it, they use it, they hold it gently in their limbs, letting it guide the flow of their becoming. And in return, trees give us time, literally. They clean the air, absorbing carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen. They slow erosion, protect watersheds, buffer wind. In cities, their shade cools the air. Their presence reduces stress, lowers heart rates and calms busy minds. A single hour beneath a tree can stretch in feeling, slow in rhythm, deepen in presence. The tree shares its pace. It lends us its stillness, its way of being. In Japan, the practice of Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, has become a kind of healing. It is not about exercise or exploration. It is about being, about walking slowly among trees, breathing deeply, allowing the nervous system to soften. Science supports what intuition already knows. Time moves differently among trees. The body remembers how to rest. The brain begins to heal. The forest does not hurry, and neither must we. Children often understand this without being told. Give a child an hour in the woods and they do not ask the time. They notice bark, ant trails, the way a branch moves in wind. Their attention slows, their curiosity grows. This is a form of learning older than school, the learning of presence, the understanding that time is not a line but a circle, that it repeats, that it breathes. Trees do not keep time in isolation. In groves and forests, they become clocks together. A grove of aspens, for example, may appear to be many individual trees, but beneath the surface they are one, connected by a shared root system, one living organism with many stems. When one part of the grove changes, the rest responds. Leaves turn together. Growth slows together. In this way, they hold time communally. Their unity becomes rhythm. Even solitary trees, those that grow in deserts or on mountain tops, are not alone. They are tuned to the wind, the stars, the birds that visit, the animals that pass. Their time is shared with the landscape. A cactus in bloom knows when the bat will arrive. An oak senses the warmth that signals spring. These patterns are not random. They are ancient agreements, formed over thousands of years of listening. And when the world changes, when climate shifts, when rains come too early or too late, trees try to adapt. They leaf out sooner, flower differently, adjust their cycles. Some succeed, others struggle. The timing that once kept them in harmony begins to fray. Scientists are watching this closely, for in the rhythms of trees, we see our own patterns reflected. Their struggles warn us, their changes mirror ours. Yet even now trees whisper time. A young sapling leans toward the morning sun, an old cedar sheds a branch in winter wind. A grove of willows bends in unison. These are not accidents. They are choreography, slow, quiet, elegant. The ballet of biology and time unfolding not in hours but in seasons, not in seconds but in centuries. When you next pass a tree, pause, not just to admire it, but to listen. Not with your ears, but with your presence. There is a rhythm there, older than cities, deeper than speech. A counting done in light and water and stillness. A language of patience, a song of cycles. You are not separate from it. The same sun guides your days. The same earth holds your steps. The same rhythms live in your blood, in your breath, in your cells. You too are shaped by time, not just in age, but in motion, in feeling, in memory. And if you let it, the tree will remind you, not by speaking, but by being, not with urgency, but with grace. That time is not always something to chase. Sometimes it is something to breathe. When we think of time, we imagine clocks, calendars, countdowns. But to the trees, time is a flowing presence, a deep breath stretched across lifetimes. There are no hours among leaves, no deadlines in the rings of wood. Trees understand time as a presence, something to grow with, something to shape to. They do not hurry through it. They become it, slowly, quietly, with patience that turns seasons into stories. Even in the absence of growth, trees are keeping time. In winter, when the surface stills and the air turns sharp, there is no visible motion. But inside, beneath the bark and deep in the roots, change is taking place. Cells are preserving water, adjusting structure, preparing for the thaw. Dormancy is not silence, it is listening. It is the body of the tree aligning with the body of the earth, resting together under the weight of frost and sky. This rhythm continues across lifetimes. Some trees, like the giant sequoias, live for over 3,000 years. Imagine the stillness of that life, to stand as civilizations rise and vanish, to remain while rivers change course, while the stars shift slightly overhead. These trees are not witnesses to time. They are time. Their bark is layered with centuries. Their roots hold the memory of ancient rainfall. Their presence is not measured in days, but in endurance. Even fallen trees do not exit the story. As they decay, they soften, returning nutrients to the soil, feeding mycelium, cradling seedlings. Time flows through them still, only now in a different form, no longer rising, but returning. A nurse log might support dozens of young plants before it fades completely, its last breath given to the next generation. This is not loss, it is offering. The tree teaches that even in stillness we are giving, and still the tree listens. It listens to temperature, to wind direction, to length of day. Each of these elements speaks of time not in hours but in signals. Trees do not look forward or backward, but they remember. Their buds remember the cold and wait for warmth. Their roots remember the dry years and grow deeper. Their bark thickens where winters were harsh. They do not guess, they know. This knowing is not magic. It is biology, but biology that feels sacred. A maple tree will not leaf out until the precise moment when light and temperature say yes. Not before, not after. A cherry blossom will wait for the exact cues to begin its brief, brilliant bloom. These decisions are not made by thought, but by rhythm, a biological symphony playing across each cell, each season. In this, trees are honest. They do not pretend to bloom in winter. They do not rush toward light before they are ready. They follow the shape of their own time, and perhaps this is what they have to teach us, that timing is not a race but a resonance. That to bloom too early is to risk frost. That to bloom too late is to miss the bees. There is wisdom in waiting, in sensing, in trusting the signals that rise from deep within. The mycorrhizal networks that link trees together also follow time. Fungal threads move slowly through the soil, forming connections, sharing information, transferring resources. The timing of these exchanges is shaped by moisture, heat, and need. If a tree is injured, the network redirects flow. If nutrients are scarce, older trees may hold back to let younger ones feed. There is no central command, there is only cooperation shaped by time. This sense of time is not static. As the climate shifts, trees are changing their timing. Leaf-out dates arrive earlier, blooms happen sooner. Migration patterns of pollinators adjust, sometimes falling out of sync. This mismatch, phenological mismatch scientists call it, shows how delicate the timing of life really is. A single week's difference in bloom can affect generations of birds, bees, and seeds. Time, once perfectly tuned, begins to fray. Yet even in uncertainty, trees adapt. Some learn to bloom again. Others wait longer. Seedlings sprout in new directions. The forest rewrites itself slowly, quietly, in response to time's new rhythm. This resilience is not loud, it is not immediate, but it is real. It shows us that time is not just something to measure, but something to dance with, even when the song changes. In cities, where the pace of life often rushes past, street trees become a kind of pause, a reminder of different time, a rhythm that does not care for appointments or alarms. A tree planted by a sidewalk will stand for decades, watching cars, hearing laughter, weathering storms. Its life does not depend on hurry, it depends on care, water, space, sunlight. With these, even in concrete, it follows its own season. Children raised near trees grow differently. Studies show they experience less stress, better focus, stronger emotional regulation. It is as though the trees lend them part of their rhythm, a softness in thought, a slower way of looking, the gift of being able to stop, to wonder, to wait. These are not lessons taught directly. They are absorbed through branches overhead, through shadows on the ground, through the silence of leaves. And in our final moments, trees stand still. They do not look away. In graveyards and memory gardens, they offer shade without judgment. They grow slowly beside grief, holding time for those who can no longer count it. Their roots entwine with our stories. Their leaves carry the breath of those who came before. They are the clocks that do not tick, the calendars that do not end. So what does it mean to say that trees whisper time? It means they do not rush. It means they do not forget. It means they hold rhythm in their branches, memory in their rings, and patience in their roots. It means they grow toward light and rest in darkness, and wait when waiting is wise. And we too can learn from this, to measure our time not only in deadlines and destinations, but in presence, in breath, in the way we stand quietly beside others, in how we listen, in how we grow. Because time is not only something that passes, it is something we carry, something we plant, something we whisper forward, like seeds, like stories, like leaves on the wind. Water never forgets. It remembers the clouds it once drifted through, the stones it's worn smooth, the hands that once cupped it, the sky it fell from. When it moves, it carries memory, not in words, but in rhythm. In the hush of a stream, in the swirl of a tide, in the silent beads clinging to a window pane. Water tells a story that began long before us. And if we listen gently enough, we might hear it remembering rain. Rain does not fall randomly, it forms in patterns pulled by temperature, pressure, wind, and time. Tiny particles in the air, salt, dust, even pollen, become the seeds of drops. Around them, water vapor gathers and condenses, molecule by molecule, until the weight becomes too much to hold. The drop falls, and with it a journey begins. Each raindrop is both a beginning and a return, to earth, to ocean, to root. When the drop lands, it does not vanish. It seeps, it flows, it lingers in puddles and pools. Some is caught by leaves, some swallowed by soil. But none is wasted. It joins a cycle older than memory, the hydrological loop of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and return. This cycle is not linear. It is circular, timeless, and each round carries memory, not of events, but of pathways. Water knows where it has been, because it changes the places it touches. In the soil, rain becomes something quieter. It travels downward, pulled by gravity, curling around grains of sand, finding cracks in stone. It carries with it tiny minerals, nutrients, and signals. As it descends, it cools, it slows. This is where aquifers begin. Ancient rivers beneath the surface, flowing in darkness, whispering against rock. Some of this groundwater has been moving for hundreds, even thousands of years. It remembers rain that fell long before your name was spoken, long before cities rose, long before clocks. When water emerges again, through springs or wells or seepage, it carries these memories upward. The minerals it brings shape landscapes. The temperature it holds reveals its depth. In this way, water that once fell as storm returns as a gentle emergence, a reminder that even what disappears may return, that the quietest paths are often the longest. And then there is snow, frozen rain, slowed time. A snowflake is not simply water in stillness, it is geometry, etched by temperature and moisture. No two are exactly alike because no two paths through the clouds are the same. Each flake carries its own journey, its own moment of condensation and crystallization. When it lands, it rests, it layers, it waits, until warmth returns, and then the memory of rain begins again, melted, moving, remembering. Rivers are the great storytellers of water's memory. They begin from snowmelt, springs, rainfall, then carve their way across mountains and plains. Along the way, they shape the land, deepen valleys, create deltas. They carry silt, sediment, fish, seeds. They join with others, split apart, change course. A river never flows the same way twice, yet always follows gravity's pull. It remembers every turn, every flood, every drought. The sound of a river is the sound of water moving through time. Scientists call it turbulence and the chaotic dance of molecules bouncing against each other, against rock and air. But to the ear it is music. Not structured, but soothing. It calms because it mimics something ancient in us, the rhythm of heartbeat, of breath, of blood. We are made mostly of water, and so the river feels familiar, as if it is not just outside us but within. Oceans hold the deepest memories. They are vast, layered archives of salt and silence. Their currents move slowly, sometimes taking 1,000 years to complete a full cycle. These global conveyors carry heat from the equator to the poles, move nutrients from deep to surface, mix the atmosphere with the abyss. When water moves at such scale, it carries not just memory, but climate. It shapes weather, it holds history, it writes the story of Earth. In the language of science, water has phases, solid, liquid, gas, but in the language of wonder, it has moods. Mist is memory rising, fog is thought made visible. Rain is forgiveness falling, ice is patience, rivers are longing, oceans are knowing, and within each form the memory of the others lingers. Ice remembers flow, vapor remembers depth. Every drop is a threshold, always in motion, always between what was and what will be. Plants remember rain through water. Roots draw it upward, cell by cell, against gravity, through a miracle called capillary action. Each molecule pulls the next, as if remembering the path together. In the leaves, water becomes breath, transpired into air, joining clouds once more. The tree then is part of the sky, a bridge through which rain remembers how to rise again. Humans too are shaped by water's memory. Our tears carry salt like the ocean. Our blood flows with the rhythm of tides. Our bodies recall immersion, the warmth of a bath, the hush of swimming, the softness of rain on skin. And within us, water does not sit still. It moves through vessels, through cells, through breath. It listens, it waits, it carries the chemistry of emotion, the coolness of thought, the heat of joy. And when we listen to water, or when we stop to hear a droplet fall, a stream wind through rocks, a wave curl against the shore, we are not just hearing sound, we are hearing memory. We are touching the echo of storms, the whisper of clouds, the breath of sky returning home. We are reminded that time is not always a straight line. Sometimes it is a cycle, a circle, a rain that returns. So when you next hold a glass of water, pause, feel its coolness, notice its weight. Imagine the journey it has taken, from sky to soil, from mountain to river, from root to cloud. It remembers all of it. And now, for a moment, you become part of that memory. You drink, and the story continues, in you, around you, through you. Because water never forgets, it only changes shape, and in every drop rain is remembered. Water is a traveller, but it is also a teacher. It knows how to move through resistance without force, how to shape stone without violence, how to find its way even in darkness. It does not rush, yet it arrives. It does not speak, yet it remembers. And in every corner of the earth it leaves behind the echo of where it has been, not as a footprint, but as a feeling, a change, a quiet memory etched in motion. Glaciers are one of water's oldest memories. These massive, slow-moving rivers of ice hold within them the history of thousands of years. Snow falls, compresses, turns to ice, layer by layer. Year by year the glacier grows. Inside, bubbles of air from ancient atmospheres remain trapped, little pockets of forgotten climate, time sealed in ice. When scientists drill into these glaciers, they read the past not from pages, but from particles. Water in this form becomes a record, a frozen archive of Earth's breath. And when glaciers melt, they do not vanish without meaning. Their meltwater feeds rivers, nourishes valleys, shapes new terrain. But it also carries the memory of change. As the climate warms, glaciers retreat faster, shedding not just water, but warning. In their shrinking silence is the sound of time accelerating. And yet the water continues. It flows forward, never clinging to its frozen form, always becoming, always remembering, but never returning the same. Rainwater that falls in a forest is not lost. The canopy catches it, leaves cradle it, it slides down bark, collects in grooves, finds roots. Some of it seeps into the ground and becomes part of the slow movement below. Some evaporates, returning upward. The rest may nourish a flower, drip into a stream, or simply wait in moss. No drop follows the same path, but each contributes to the life of the forest. Water is not just presence, it is participation. In deserts, where rain is rare, water is sacred. The soil, the plants, the creatures all respond instantly when it comes. Seeds that have waited years burst open. Beetles drink droplets from their shells. Cacti swell with sudden life. The land knows how to listen for rain. It has adapted to remember what to do when water finally speaks. And when the moment passes, the memory lingers, not as abundance but as resilience, as a lesson in enough. Some of the world's oldest living organisms are shaped by water's memory. Bristlecone pines, thousands of years old, have been watered by the same patterns of snow and melt, drought and flood. Coral reefs grow from the memory of warm currents and sunlight dancing through clear waves. Even lichens on ancient rocks record rainfall through their colour, their thickness, their quiet presence. Water teaches life how to live in cycles, not in straight lines. And what about the water inside us? The human body is more water than anything else. We are born from it, float in it before breath, and rely on it every moment after. Our cells are suspended in fluid. Our thoughts fire through moist networks. Our senses, yours, taste, touch, hearing, all depend on the way water carries signals. Memory itself may rely on the fluidity of these connections. Without water, the brain cannot form or recall. Perhaps memory at its root is a river. When we cry, we return water to the world. Not just moisture, but salt, like the sea. Grief, love, joy, pain, all rise to the surface as water. It escapes us not in weakness, but in truth, in being human. Every tear is a return, a wave washing through the body, a reminder that we are not separate from the tide, that emotion has shape, and that shape is fluid. In ancient stories, water is always a threshold. Rivers mark boundaries. Oceans hold myths. Springs are sources of healing. In Greek legend, the river Lethe carried forgetfulness, while the river Mnemosyne carried memory. To drink from one was to erase. To drink from the other was to recall. In this duality, water was seen not just as substance, but as choice, to remember or to let go, to carry forward or to begin again. Even today, rituals around water echo these ideas. Baptisms, ablutions, blessings, all use water to mark change. To cleanse, to start over, to connect. The water used may be ordinary, but the meaning it holds is not. It is a conduit, a witness, a vessel for the unseen. In touching it, we reach something ancient in ourselves. The part that knows time is not only what passes, but what returns. And sometimes water sings, not in words but in tones, the drip of a faucet, the rush of a river, the hush of snowfall. These sounds calm us because they speak in patterns we've known since before birth. The rhythm of amniotic fluid, the sound of blood in the womb, the pulse of mother's heart, all are water's lullabies. To listen to water is to remember comfort, to come home to rhythm. In the laboratory, researchers are exploring whether water can hold patterns even at a molecular level. Some theories suggest that the structure of water changes depending on what it has touched, how it has moved. While still debated, the idea fascinates. That water could hold a kind of physical memory, invisible but real, that each molecule could remember a stone, a leaf, a word spoken nearby. That water could carry emotion as well as energy. Whether or not this proves true, we know this. Water shapes memory in us. We remember moments by how they felt, and feeling is fluid. A childhood summer might be remembered through the cold of a lake. A goodbye might return as the scent of rain on pavement. A joy as the sparkle of waves. Water binds memory not with logic, but with sensation. And through all of this, water keeps moving. It does not hold tightly, it does not stay where it is not needed. It flows, it transforms, it climbs and falls, waits and rushes, stills and storms. And in all its forms, mist, flood, stream, snow, it carries the same message. Nothing is ever lost. It only changes form. So when you look at water, in a glass, a river, a tear, know that it sees you. It reflects you. But more than that, it joins you. It moves through you as it moves through the world, leaving traces, carrying stories. You are part of its memory, just as it becomes part of yours. And together you continue, shaped by rain, softened by waves, lifted by mist, and returned again and again to the sky. The final return of water is not an end, but another invitation, to rise again, to shift shape, to remember in a new form. When sunlight touches the surface of the sea, of a lake, of your skin after rain, molecules begin to lift. Evaporation is not vanishing, it is transformation. The water becomes vapor, becomes cloud, becomes sky. And within that sky, carried by winds, sculpted by air pressure and temperature, the memory of Earth moves across continents, across oceans, until once again it falls. Rain returns in patterns. Some arrive gently and misting a hillside, softening dry leaves, soaking into thirsty soil. Others arrive with thunder, racing down roofs and rushing into streets. But every rainfall is more than weather. It is reunion. It is the sky remembering where it has been. Water is returning to the ground it once left, and with it comes minerals, dust, trace signals from faraway places. This is not just a cycle, it is a conversation. Forests know how to listen. Trees lift their leaves, roots stretch, bark drinks. Some species even raise their branches slightly during rainfall, sensing not only moisture but timing. The water that lands on them today may have passed through another forest, another time zone, another century. There is no telling which mountain it melted from, which sea it came from, which human hand once held it. But the tree does not question, it simply receives. Animals too shape their lives around water's rhythm. Salmon remember the stream of their birth and travel thousands of miles through oceans to return to it. Frogs call only when rain is near. Birds migrate along wetland corridors that vanish when droughts grow long. Each of these lives is a song shaped by liquid memory. Their rhythms are not scheduled word, they are sensed. Felt through skin, through bone, through the water in their blood. In deserts where rain may not fall for years, life still waits. Seeds sleep beneath the sand, dormant but listening. When the rain finally comes, even if only for minutes, the desert blooms. Flowers rise overnight, beetles scurry to drink from petals, lizards emerge from cool rocks. The land remembers what to do, even if it forgets for a long time. Rain is not just a resource, it is a key. It unlocks memory from the soil. And then, after rain has fallen, the air changes. Petrichor, scientists call it, the earthy scent released when drops hit dry ground. The smell comes from oils in plants, from compounds in bacteria, from the minerals lifted by rain. But more than that, it is a scent of memory, a moment where past and present meet in your nose, telling you the earth has been waiting, that the sky has returned something precious. In human culture, water is everywhere. We build rituals around it, we bless it, we curse it when it overflows, we follow it to find life, and always we return to it. At the end of long journeys, we look for rivers. In times of sorrow, we seek oceans. At birth, we are washed. In grief, we are cleansed. Water holds the moments that words cannot. It comforts without speaking. And it asks so little in return, and it asks only to be allowed to move, to be clean, to be part of the cycle without interference. Yet our modern world often forgets this. We dam its paths, divert its flow, pollute its clarity. We forget that water does not belong to us, it moves through us, that every drop we see has been part of someone else's breath, someone else's tears, someone else's time. We are guests in its story, but still, water remembers, and sometimes it reminds us. A sudden flood forces us to stop, a drought teaches patience, a spring from dry ground feels like grace. These are not punishments, they are calls to listen. Water, in its movement, in its returning, speaks in events. Not to hurt but to wake, not to control but to invite. Always it flows back to its purpose. That purpose is not only to sustain life, it is to carry it, through generations, through changes, through memory. Every stream carries the story of what it has touched. Every snowflake holds the sky's secret shape. Every tide remembers the pull of the moon. These are not poetic inventions. They are truths, quiet, measurable, lived by every creature that swims, drinks, bathes, or floats. Inside us, water continues to move. In every heartbeat, in every breath, in every word there is moisture. Even now as you sit reading this, water is shaping your thoughts, keeping neurons flowing, carrying glucose to the brain, cooling your core. You're not just made of water. You're moved by it. Thought, memory, feeling, all require its presence. And just as water changes its state, from ice to liquid to vapor, we too change. We shift with time, with emotion, with memory. But like water, we do not lose ourselves in these transformations. We return, sometimes in a new shape, sometimes in a new place, but always still us, still remembering. In the quiet after a storm, when puddles reflect the sky, when the world smells new, there is a sense of stillness. But that stillness is full. It is the breath after crying, the pause after movement, the moment when water, having journeyed far, settles for just a while before it rises again. If you close your eyes and listen to a dripping tap, a fountain, a wave, you may begin to hear what water remembers. Not just where it has been, but where it is going. Not just what it has touched, but what it still holds. And in that listening you remember too. You remember that nothing is ever really gone, that every goodbye carries the shape of a return, that every drop you see or feel or hear is a moment from another place still alive in this one. So let the rain fall, let the stream speak, let the ocean rise and recede, let the tear roll. It is all the same story told again and again in softness, in silence, in sound. The sound of water remembering rain and inviting you to remember too. Inside your mind, thoughts move like stars across a night sky, unseen, but real. They flicker between neurons, leaping tiny gaps with electric light. You have billions of these brain cells, and each one forms connections, shaping patterns that become memory, emotion, imagination. Thought is not just in your head, it changes your body, heart rate, breath, posture. A single memory can warm your skin, a single worry can weigh your chest. Thought flows through the body like a quiet river guided by attention. What you focus on grows stronger. What you forget begins to fade. Your brain is always changing. It rewires with every new idea, every new feeling. This is neuroplasticity, the mind's way of reshaping itself. And it means you are never stuck. Your thoughts can bend, heal, expand. Some thoughts come softly, like mist. Others arrive like thunder. But between them there is always a stillness, a silence watching. That is awareness, the part of you behind the thought, deeper than words. It notices, it waits. So the shape of thought is not solid. It is fluid, alive, built from feeling and light. And in every moment you pause, listen, and wonder. Your thoughts shape you just as you shape them.